Welcome, dear students, to my class. Glad to meet you. We will speak about vocabulary, testing vocabulary today. You know that the biggest and the most important thing about learning language is learning vocabulary, knowing vocabulary. Now, most of you are future teachers and you must learn how to test your students' vocabulary. Today we will speak about how to test our students' vocabulary. Why test vocabulary, what to test, and types of tests, vocabulary testing techniques. Let's remember first of all what is vocabulary. Vocabulary is a stock of words or all words which our learners used in their speech. Vocabulary, that's to say, in order to talk, to speak any foreign language, we need vocabulary. Today, we must say, why do we need to test vocabulary, or why do we need testing anything? In order to know how effective our course or our teaching, we must test our students, our learners' vocabulary. First of all, teachers need to know how develop their students' vocabulary knowledge is and why. Without a basic vocabulary, the potential for developing a reading problem is great. Vocabulary knowledge is strongly related to overall reading comprehension. A limited vocabulary represents a limited understanding concept. Well-developed vocabulary skills and wide background knowledge help individuals comprehend more difficult and complex material. That's to say, if our students, our learners' vocabulary is wide, they can easily speak any foreign language. In order to speak any foreign language, we must learn more and more words of this language. Testing vocabulary motivates learners if they know that they are going to be tested. They review vocabulary in order to prepare for the test. Also, it provides a form of feedback both for learners and teachers. Teachers must know the effectiveness of teaching, research purpose, the kind of research that teachers themselves can carry out in their own classroom. It makes a useful backwash effect. Let's see some examples. Vocabulary task. Make 6 lists of the words in the box. First, the body. The second, travel. Third, the country. Fourth, illness. Fifth, jobs. Sixth, food. And there are given some words in the box. The second task is asking, mark the stress on the correct syllable of words of more than one syllable. The task like this is a review activity, we can say. It is informal testing. This type of test can be used during the lesson for reviewing our previous lesson. This kind of test can be done each lesson for practicing or recycling past material. Vocabulary covered in the previous lesson should be tested at the beginning of the next one. But there is also formal testing, like a placement or diagnostic test which is taken at the beginning of the course, or achievement test which is at the end of the course. There is also proficiency test which is measured by external exams such as TOEFL or Cambridge First Certificate. What to test? Knowing a word means knowing a form of the word, meaning of the word, its connotation, its grammatical features, its collocations or its derivations or its relative frequency. form, meaning, connotation, parts of speech, collocations, derivations, relative frequency of word. It is the aspects of word knowledge. All these aspects cannot be tested in one test or in one type of test. Most tests involve only some of aspects. For example, form, meaning or connotation, some of them parts of speech. We can't use all aspects in one test. We can test aspects of word knowledge receptively or productively. In listening and reading, we can use receptive tests. And in speaking and writing, we can use some productive tests. Most vocabulary tests target only one or two aspects of word knowledge. Let's see some examples. The first test, teacher says, write down these words: confident, independent, expectant, reluctant, etc. In the second task, write the English word that means a place where you go to buy meat, the person who repairs your kitchen tap if it leaks, the thing that you buy at the post office if you want to post a letter, etc. The tests like that are receptive. They don't have any context. In the third test, choose the best word to complete each sentence. The flight attendant asks the passengers attention to the safety demonstration. Give, devote, pay, lend. The second, the delegates blamed each other when the peace talks broke off, up, on, down. But in the third example, you can see context. In receptive tests like these, we can test learners' ability to recognize the form of word. But we can do them productive. These tests can be also used as contextualized. In the first test, teacher can ask to write down the whole sentence. Or in the second one, teacher can ask students to put these phrases into sentences. In the third one, pay attention, we remove the given answers, and it can be productive that learners must guess the words themselves. Whether to test with or without a context or to test for recognition or for production are issues that are best resolved by taking into account the purpose of the test and also its likely effect on teaching. If the purpose of the test is to predict the learner's reading ability, for example, then a receptive test will be sufficient. It should also be a contextualized text because reading involves using context clues to help work out word meaning. A decontextualized word test might not be a valid test of reading ability. Moreover, it has been argued that the contextualized tests encourage learners simply to learn long lists of words. On the plus side, decontextualized tests are usually easy to compile and mark, so they are therefore very practicable. Let's see some formats for testing vocabulary. What are the common test formats for testing vocabulary in terms of recognition? Multiple choice items, which we can analyze about the most used and easy to score. Error recognition items, pairing and matching items, gap filling items, clause, modified clause, guessing meaning from the context. Let's analyze some of them. Multiple choice. We can give only words. Tangle. What means tangle? And there are given 4 answers. The second one, a contextualized multiple choice. We are given a context and words. We must choose appropriate word for the given context. Gap filling. In gap filling, first, there is no given any words or letters. Students themselves must guess the words instead of gaps. Type of gap filling, we can give the first letter of the word, because if we give only gap, it will be difficult to score students, because some words can be chosen by students. But if we give the first letter, they must guess appropriate word. Gap filling, the third type. In the third type, we can also give the first part of the word and remove the second part. It's also helpful for students to guess the word. The fourth type of gap filling. Change the word on the left into a suitable form to fill the gap. In this type of test, students must know the derivation of the word. Instead of compose, you can make composer, compositor, etc. But all these types of testing are arguable, whether they are reliable for testing students' knowledge of vocabulary. And here comes the following types of tests. The following test types attempt to remedy this weakness. Write a paragraph of about 100 words to include at least 6 of the following 10 words. You can change the form of the word if necessary. Example, work, worked. Test marks can be allocated for both correct form and appropriate use of each of the selected words. Now here we analyze some types of tests, and it's up to you how to test your learners and which kind of test to choose. You may ask your learners to write sentences of their own that show the meaning of target words, and you can check by these the productivity of your learners. How should I test vocabulary, you can ask, and it's up to the teacher how a teacher intends to test vocabulary. The vocabulary should be connected to how they teach the course. Students should not be asked to simply memorize long vocabulary lists, because the learned vocabulary can easily be forgotten. Vocabulary words should be presented in context. In such a way, learners can easily use the learned vocabulary in any context. When testing vocabulary, avoid testing words in isolation. Try to teach in context and to test in context your learners. Pay attention to the factors in testing vocabulary. Validity. Does the test assess what I want to assess? Of practicality. Easy to administer. Of backwash. Will the test have a positive effect on learning? Reliability. Does it have consistent result? Face validity. Do the learners accept it as being a valid test? Now let's see and discuss some vocabulary testing techniques. Now look in examples. Choose the letter of the item which is the nearest in meaning to the word in italics. He was reluctant to answer. Example 2. Choose the letter of the definition which comes closest in meaning to the word related. Examples 1 and 2. Multiple choice. Multiple choice questions are tricky and time-consuming to compose, but if the answers are clear, very quick and easy to mark. Note that a testee who doesn't know the answer has a 25% chance of being right by guessing. The second example allows for more careful and subtle distinction in meaning. The next example is matching. Draw lines connecting the pairs of opposites. It's according to antonyms. Example 3, matching. As in the previous examples, only meaning is tested, and is knowledge of an opposite a proof that the testee knows the meaning of the original word. Matching items are quicker and easier to compose than multiple choice, but note that the last option, if the learner has all the others right, becomes obvious. This problem can be corrected by the provision of more items in column B than in A. The next example, underline the odd one out. There are given some words and learners should underline the odd one. Example 4, again only meaning is being tested and you have no way of being sure that all the items are known, but this is at least more interesting to do and usually easy to mark. Example 5, for each of the following words write a sentence that makes its meaning clear. There are given words, learners must make up sentences. Spelling and pronunciation of the items are not tested, but most other aspects are. This is a bit boring to do and difficult to mark objectively, but does check the testee's knowledge fairly well. Example 6. The teacher dictates the words, the students write them down. Spelling dictation, we can say. Dictation tests oral recognition and spelling only. However, if learners can recognize and spell an item correctly, they probably also know what it means. It is extremely difficult to perceive, let alone spell, words you don't know. A relatively easy test to administer and check. Example 7. The teacher dictates the mother tongue equivalents of the words. The students write down the target language versions. Dictation translation, we can say. This checks if students know meaning and spelling only. There is a problem that the mother tongue translation may be inexact or misleading, but if it's a reasonable equivalent, then this is a very quick, easy and convenient test to administer and check. Example 8. Students are given sentence in the mother tongue to translate into the target language or vice versa. Translation can test all aspects of an item, but there are better ways of testing. For additional information, you can read the following books. Now, dear students, we have looked at different ways vocabulary learning can be tested. Testing needs to take account of factors such as validity, reliability, practicality, face validity. Testing can be both informal, as in regular progress tests, or formal, as in end-of-course achievement tests. Sometimes, example, for placement purpose. It is useful to test for vocabulary size. Good tests have a positive backwash effect. For example, they encourage good learning strategies. Vocabulary tests can be divided into tests of recognition or production. They also divide between tests where words are tested out of context, in context. Testing is one way of assessing learning outcomes, the products of learning. One way of assessing the process of learning is by means of action research. An action research cycle typically includes a pre-test, an experimental treatment, a post-test. That's all for today. Goodbye, my dear students. See you next lesson.